Everyone. Welcome to Sihasin Hour this week. We're super excited. We have some wonderful guests here with us today. We have Christine Laughter from Change Labs and Lean Bitsui, who needs no introduction, I'm sure. Many of us know her from her wonderful social media presence and her pulse on what's happening on the Navajo Nation in all matters. So we're super excited to have you both here with us today. We'll do introductions and then we'll go ahead and get started with our discussion. We'll start out with Christine giving us a little perspective from the small business economy angle in terms of the most impact that could be had in that realm with respect to ARPA funding. And then we'll have Lean weigh in as well on some great areas for high impact spending with the nation's $2.1 billion ARPA FRF funding. So She'e Apple Branch and Chef, the Putwitney Michelin, Nakai Bash Cheese, Sitnajani Dasha Che, do Nakai Dashanella. Sezizi Denasha, and I'm speaking to you actually from Kinthana, not from Bears Ears, although I was sort of in a Bears Ears sort of mood today, so I have those in my background. I'm the executive director for Ye Ha'omido, which does business as Navajo and Hopi Families COVID-19 Relief Fund. And again, just really happy to be here with you guys today. Excited that some of you are getting some of your hardship funding probably today, although the large funding won't be coming for some time still, but I did hear that some of those CARES Act checks were out in the mail. So, but we'll hand things over to Christine to introduce herself and say hello.
She Christine Laughter Unisha. Nake den Inishle. Touching e bushes chin kia ani deshache dog lizitlana deshanella. Hello everyone. I'm Christine Laughter. I'm from the community of Kayenta, and I am a business coach and the director of kinship lending at Change Labs. I've been involved in many different things in my community. I'm also the board chair for Northland Pioneer College. So I'm really happy to be able to do that as well.
That's great. Wonderful. Thank you, Christine, for being here with us today. Lean, could you introduce yourself as well?
Sure, yeah, she Lean Bitsui and she Kitlet Cheatney and Schlet, so Totni Bashichin, Twitch Eatney Dasha Cheke, Ani Dashanella, and lay Twitternesh Dant Nasha dog, El Cap dog, the Tarikin dog, Zetla Betty, Dant Nasha. Yeah, thank you for the invite, Ethel.
Yeah, well, we're so excited to have you here, be part of this conversation. Well, why don't we get started with the small business perspective? So Christine, you have lots of different experiences in this, and well, just in the economic realm at Navajo Nation, generally speaking. And now you're at Change Labs and working with small businesses, helping them kind of sort through challenges that they're facing. So we'd love to hear from you, like what if our leaders wanted to have highest impact for the small business community on Navajo Nation, like what are some of the ways they could invest some of that FRF funding?
Well, definitely giving money and making money available to small business owners. There are so many small businesses across Navajo that we have to remember. We have to remember that we have the small business owners who run their businesses out of their home. We have small businesses that are doing different things, and some businesses may not even call themselves a business. I mean, this is how they make money every day for their family to put food on the table, but they are a business. I mean, from that burrito lady that's at the corner selling every morning, getting up every morning and getting out and doing that, to the person who is making jewelry, in their garage to provide for their family, to provide for their children so that their children can participate in different activities in the community. And then all the way to those small business owners who do have a shop, who have a shop that they run locally, and there's very few of those because many of the spaces that are available, or there is a lack of space that's available to small business owners. So some of the things that the Navajo Nation can do is to provide opportunities around the jobs or the contracts that they give out to small businesses. Our government, our leadership needs to look at the small business owners, and they need to say, well, gosh, who is out there and who can get these contracts so that that money stays within our communities. When we think about building a Navajo economy, it is taking that small business owner who has a contract and taking that dollar and keep it circulating in our community. So like I said, the burrito lady, going down and supporting the small business owner locally in the community keeps a dollar here in our community, all the way to supporting the local businesses who will take that dollar, pay the dollar to the employee. We need to keep that money circulating locally in Navajo. And just knowing that 1.1 billion is going to Navajo Tribal Utility Authority. My goodness, I want to see them give contracts to entrepreneurs, to Navajo entrepreneurs. I want to see them go above and beyond to make sure that our Navajo businesses get those contracts and that those contract dollars don't leave the reservation. I know that there are some of the businesses that don't have the capacity, but how do we help them to build the capacity so that they are in line to get those contracts?
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting what you say. Christine, would you say that like when you're encountering folks that entrepreneurs recognize themselves as such, like the burrito lady, like I don't know if you have any just random interactions where you're like, oh, tell me, like, this is a great business. And do people realize that what they're doing is small business and that they are entrepreneurs and that they could be leveling up if they wanted to?
A lot of them they may not think that they are small business. A lot of them don't see themselves as small business, but they are. And a lot of them are not, first or second generation. They could be third, fourth generation, just thinking about their families, where their grandparents or their great grandparents, what they did in the communities. And they may not have particularly made the dollar and traded the dollar, but they traded services amongst each other. And so they just know that this is how their families have thrived over the years, and how the families have done the work that they do in the communities. So anybody who is out there at the flea market, like the local markets, like here in Kayenta, every Wednesday we have the market, and so we have tons of people out there, the vendors, the food vendors who are selling meals out of their trailers. We have the vendor who is selling jewelry or making outfits, making traditional clothes. I really like to see them out there because we are buying directly from them, and a lot of them don't think that they are in business. All they know is that they're making money that is going to support their family. So we have to change the way that people think about themselves as small business owners. We have to get them to start thinking like, okay, the money that I spend traveling, let's say if they have to go to Winderock, or even if they have to travel off the reservation to get some of their supplies, they really want to start to track those expenses so that they can say that, okay, this is how much I spent this year for my business, but then this is also how much I made. So when they do their taxes, they have something to show for all of the money, all of the work that they did through the year. And I think that's maybe one area that people aren't comfortable is when it comes to doing their taxes. I mean, they're not sure if they should include that, but they really should. One of the things that I saw, I worked in banking on the reservation for a number of years, and people who did exactly that, that ran the business out of their home, they did not have the financials or their tax documents to show that they earned the money that they said they did. And I knew that, this person is out here every week selling. I know this person is making money, and they have the credit established, but they just don't have the tax documents to show the income that they've earned. So I think that we really need to start getting people to change the way that they think about what they're doing, as far as running a business, file the taxes and have a paper trail. So that way, when you get to the point and you want to, let's say you have to go out and buy something, maybe buy a vehicle, for example, you want to be able to get a good rate on your loan. So having a good rate is showing that you do have the income with your tax documents to show that. So I know of businesses that do keep accurate track of their income, of their expenses for their business. And I really have seen success with that. I mean, I have one business owner that I think of who has done this over the last 25 years. And this business owner, I mean, just is able to save for her retirement. She's able to, set money aside for things that she wants to buy. And so it can happen. We just have to get people thinking on that, thinking in that right mindset.
Mhm. That's really interesting what you're saying, because like if someone is if they're running a fourth generation business, I mean, they could be marketing and saying, we've been serving this region for over 100 years or whatever, right? But because there hasn't been that documentation, it's harder for them to do that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and like what you're saying also, just like the credit worthiness, if it's a business that's been in operation for 100 years, they would be much more likely to get a larger loan amount from a bank versus, an entity where they don't have the documentation to show that. So what I'm hearing you saying in terms of like some really important things that could be done is, in my mind, is just acknowledge the fact that there isn't a lot of intergenerational wealth in our communities in the way that there are in other communities. And that's a big source of, people buying homes. And then the mortgage is often a source of funding a small business, or, professionally leveling up on a small business. But we don't have those same tools in our community, unfortunately. So, it seems like, and this is something I've discussed with like Derek Watchman from the Navajo Chamber of Commerce, and there really just needs to be some stimulus money for businesses, just money that is like a grant to businesses to help them get the training that they need to professionalize, to understand, like, here's how you do taxes. This is why you should do it, because it'll open up loan opportunities to you, and just sort of like the nuts and bolts. And I understand that is what you guys do at Change Labs, right? You provide that sort of training to folks to help them professionalize.
Absolutely. So at Change Labs, we have a few different programs. So we have the Business Incubator Program, which, by the way, our Business Incubator Program is a 12-month long program where we take startups, businesses who are just starting up, and we put them through the Business Incubator. And through the Business Incubator, we help them to take care of or do their financial projections so they can understand what that is, how that will work, how that'll help them plan over the next few years for their business, do some strategizing. We work with them on doing some branding for their business. We actually hire native designers who come in, native graphic designers, and they work with these entrepreneurs during our incubator program and help them with their branding, help them with setting up a website for their business. And so we do a lot over a 12-month period helping small business owners. So that's one thing we do. And the application period for our incubator program actually is open now. Just opened on Monday and will be open through February 20th. So if folks want to apply for that, they definitely can go to the Change Labs website, which is nativestartup.org, and apply to be part of that program. The other thing we have is our kinship lending program, which I'm the director of the kinship loan program. And what we do is we do relationship-based loans. So we don't do the credit check like a traditional bank would do, but we do build a relationship with our borrowers. And what the relationship looks like is they apply with us, they let us know what they're going to be using the funding for. And this is for small business owners. And we're doing loans up to $5,000 this year. And what they're going to do is apply to the program. And part of the program is stipulation is that they would attend 6 months of a financial education course. So over the next 6 months, what we'll do is we'll talk to them about building a budget. So creating a spending plan for themselves, for their families, all the way down to filing taxes, and also giving them business basics. So that way it helps them to say, okay, well, I am a business and this is what I need to do to grow my business. And then next to the kinship lending program, we have a co-working space. We actually broke ground on a co-working space in Tuba City. We're hoping to have that space open in June or July of this year. So it'll be a place where small business owners can come, they can use our computers, they can use the conference room space to have meetings. And so this is a space that's going to be, hopefully we'll be able to do this in other communities across the Navajo Nation. And then we also have a research arm that researches how, the process of doing business on Navajo and looking at ways that we can simplify that process. So we do quite a few different things at Change Labs to help the small business owner. And we want to be able to continue to offer those services and help those businesses that are in business to help them scale up so they can have access to some of this ARPA money that's coming down the line, because we want to make sure our small business owners have access to that and have the capital that they need to be able to get some of these contracts.
That's great. That's great. And then the other key thing I heard you saying was essentially business space, like vending space. And I mean, we have Navajo Nation shopping centers, but, and I think this goes back to our businesses, many of them not sort of being at a point where they're able to handle, where they have a budget and they're planning to pay rental payments or lease payments. I mean, people want sites, but it seems like a lot of our businesses aren't quite at that point where they can handle that sort of recurring expense. So maybe something that the government could do is just fund business sites. One thing I always go back to, and something that we're working at, hopefully establishing through Yeha Almedo, is just open air, like basically indoor flea markets, but where vendors have access to an electricity point, so they can put in refrigerators or whatever, and not be having to deal with the weather, not having to deal with having to shut down due to that, or like not having to just sell it on a seasonal basis. But something like that, that would be very easy, just like a gymnasium in lots of different communities, so that businesses just kind of have that entry point, and they see how having access to those things can help them get their business off the ground, or even like it breaks down the barrier of having to buy a food truck or whatever for some businesses.
You know what? I just was thinking about the market in Window Rock. So the flea market in Window Rock, I mean, they have all that vending space, and they made that vending space for food sellers. But I'm really happy to see one of the businesses, Mark Arviso, he's a jeweler, and he has opened up his space there, and he actually does production in the back of the space there, and he has a little shop there, and I love it. I wish there were more spaces like that across Navajo, so that people could get in there and use the space to set up their business and and really grow their business from that point. Because I've talked to Marco about his business saying, gosh, there's a lot of opportunity. And really the space is the issue. I mean, if he had larger space, I'm sure that he could do a ton of more production if he had this space. So yeah, definitely having space on Navajo is so important, and affordable space, because small businesses, if you're just getting started, you don't have a huge budget to pay rent. You want to be able to get into something that you're comfortable in and that you can afford to pay every month.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that perspective, Christine. I think that was really helpful and insightful. And we also have Percy Deal on the line here. Percy, can you hear us okay? We may have some minor challenges here. Let's see. Why don't we go ahead and move on to Lean, and then we'll go back to Percy here in a little bit. So Lean, you're speaking to us from down in the valley, and we chatted a little bit before. You were born and raised on the nation, and like, what would it take for someone like you to come back home? Like, what can our government invest in right now with this ARPA funding to bring folks back home? We'd love to hear your perspective on that. And just in general, if you have thoughts on the highest impact for these funds, we'd love to hear that.
Oh, yeah. Hi, everybody. So I hail from Kayenta. Christine's a fellow Mustanger from there, and I really want to come home. And I think that one huge way that these funds can help our people is to streamline the process to get a home site lease. I think they should set aside funds for people who aren't able to afford to get the 2 surveys done, because they're very expensive. And the wait time, because as I understand, we're short staffed on the Navajo Nation side through Fish and Wildlife, that the archaeologist there has a huge queue, a backlog. So when we only have literally a handful of people trying to pass the archaeological clearances or whatever other clearances that we need to get a home site lease, there's a problem right there. We need to make sure that we have enough manpower to push these home site lease requests to approval status. I think that's one way that the ARPA funds can really help to bring people home like me, to get the home site lease, less stringent, if you will. And also to set aside funds for people who can't afford to get the archaeological clearances as well, because you have to get your own surveyor to survey the land, and you have to pay for both of those 2 types of clearances. Another way that these funds will really help our people, in my mind, is to come home, is to provide a stable infrastructure environment, maybe homes that people can rent, because the wait for the home site lease process is so long, and like years. I think that these funds could be really useful to set up. I mean, even people from Kayenta that travel to Window Rock on a daily basis, that's a 2-hour drive during the winter more. And to have housing available to rent off, in local bigger communities like Tuba City, Kayenta, Window Rock, to have rental homes for our people. And lastly, to really upgrade not only the software our tribe uses, that's one way our ARPA funds could really help out our people, like Vital Records. They should pour some of that money into upgrading the entire system, because now we have our employees over at Navajo Nation Vital Records they're duplicating census numbers to our people who are being born, our babies. And so the software definitely needs to be upgraded. We need more staffing. We need to fill all those vacancies, and we need to have our people, those in leadership, to really upgrade the pay scale for our people. Because pay scale, when you have a huge student loan and you want to come home and you're walking in and you're getting $13 an hour, that won't help you with your student loans. So that in itself is a huge problem. And it's across the board, because I know of people who are working in the hardship office. And Elizabeth Begay, the acting controller, stated that the more qualified people who they hired, I think they had 19 total, but now they're down to 9. Their one is beginning at $11 and the other's at $13. And these people are driving far to Window Rock to process these hardship checks by hand. So there has to be an overhaul. And I'm sure you, Ethel, have a lot of experience in what our Navajo Nation employees are going through, having to know that your employees probably have to travel far just to make $1, just to make that $9 an hour to bring home. And now we have this supply chain shortage, and food is on the rise, shelves are empty, and gas is going up. So there's just the perfect storm, if you will. So I think these ARPA funds could be used immediately to help our people, not only with the supply chain issue, but to ease the pangs of having to apply for a home site, to help with our clearances, our archaeological clearances that we have to get, and to have nice people at the chapter house level to explain all of this, the process in which we have to go through. And in our case with Christine, we have a township and we have a chapter house. So it's really hard to navigate between the two, just coming from our little town of, oh, I have to go to township for this. Like, I had no idea, when I would ask for help, and I went to the chapter house. Oh no, township takes care of it. I'm like, oh my gosh. So there's just a lot of things that these ARPA funds, and we should spend it. It's sitting there, as you girls know, it's just sitting there. And we got these funds. We got word from the Biden administration probably a year ago, and it rolled out to the tribes in May. Every tribe, the 574 tribes, they got their funds on May 28th, and which was on a Friday. And so immediately, a lot of tribes, their tribal chairman or president or chief, they right away said, let's get together with council and let's help our people. Our people are dying. We need to do this right away. Did the Navajo Nation do that? No. A year later, almost a year later, our people, our elders, because I was getting photos and people emailing me, messaging me, there's an elder here. They've been coming every day. I know of this other elder who's hitchhiking every day to the post office. So it's just a real problem to promise, to make a false promise and get the hopes up of our people. Just be honest. Our leadership just needs to be honest. But in my mind, these are the ways that we can spend those dollars, and to spend it immediately. I've seen the White Mountain Apache tribe, their dedication, their number one priority was to bring their elders home, bring our elders home. And all these senior homes, senior living homes off the reservation, their priority is bring our people back. They broke ground and they're going to build this huge senior care facility on their lands. And it's really heartwarming to see that, because, with our people, our elders, they're out there off the reservation, crying to come home, crying to be within the 4 sacred mountains. So there's just so many issues, and we have the money. Why can't we just spend it? I mean, it's there. Now it's an issue. There's excuses. Yesterday's I think it was the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. It was just full of excuses. And Ethel, again, you probably have a lot of experience with this too, but it's really heartbreaking to know that we literally have money and there's no more excuse of we don't have the funding. We have the funding. Let's spend it for our people who are in need, our elders, our veterans. 5 years, not one veteran home has been built. It's been in a press release recently that President Jonathan Nez is in the process of building the first veteran home. So there's a real problem with our nation and our people who are in need, and we got to spend these funds on our people and really find that balance between infrastructure and our living people right now.
There's one thing I want to say to that is, half of this ARPA money is going to NQA. And I'm just wondering that 1.1 billion, how many people will that help? How many people will that 1.1 going to NQA help versus taking a chunk of that and doing some of that construction in some of our communities so that we can do exactly what you're saying, put money into the community so that it's helping the communities directly.
Hello,
instead of
this is
helping
Percy Deal.
one by one.
Hey, Percy. How are you? Can you hear us?
This is Percy Deal.
We can hear you, Percy. Can you hear us?
Just letting you know that I am on the line.
Okay, great. We're going to turn to you here in a minute. Christine, was there anything else you wanted to add to that comment?
Well, we talk about let's spend this money now, and we need to get going on it. All this money is bottlenecked right now in council and the president's office, and we really need to get to spending it and making sure that it benefits communities on the nation, not individuals. I know that we're all getting the hardship money, which is great, but let's start looking at how we can help this, how this money can benefit communities as well.
Great. Thank you for adding those comments, Christine. And Percy, we're so happy to have you here. So we had a little bit of discussion about high impact spending that could be made by our government to strengthen the small business economy on Navajo Nation and to bring our young people home, and basically lay the foundation for filling some of the vacancies that exist on Navajo Nation. We always have extremely high vacancies in our government jobs. And part of that is because there is a challenge to accessing housing on Navajo Nation. So, Lean shared a recommendation for increasing rental housing opportunities and breaking down some of these barriers to accessing home site leases. So that's kind of some of the discussion we've had so far here, Percy. And we'd love to hear from you, I guess from the Hogan level perspective, what are the top things that our government could invest in that would improve our people's lives at that level? Can you hear us? Are you able to chime in?
My name is Percy Deal, and I live in Big Mountain area, which is one of the most remote locations on the Navajo Reservation, which is also south of Peabody Mine. Last year and the year before that, we saw and we've heard of, and we did not see, many of the things that the Navajo Nation and other people were doing in providing, some help to the people. And I'm sure large community like Tibu City, Kayente, Pinyon, Chinle, and those type of communities, Shiprock and so forth, they probably did get quite a bit of a benefit. But community in between these large communities, the remote area, the rural area, where roads are not adequate and so forth, we didn't see a whole lot of benefit, but we did see some. Okay, we did see some. But what I wanted to mention is that there's a questionnaire that was given to me as to what I should try to address from the Hogan level. I'm one of those people that is, living in that condition. The president, Jonathan Nance, through a legislation 0257-21, made a recommendation as to how that $2 billion should be used to help recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. And he outlined, I believe it was 5 or 6 or 7 areas, like water and wastewater project, $301 million, broadband infrastructure, $208 million, electricity for homes, $200 million, housing, $100 million, bathroom addition, $150 million, hardship money, $207 million. The Navajo Nation Council held a work session with the president and his administration, and they presented this plan under this legislation to the Navajo Nation Council, and there was a lot of questions. I'm talking as a result of reading it in the paper, okay? There was apparently a lot of questions that were raised by the Navajo Nation Council. And the questions that were being raised was that we'd like to know more, like, for example, the water and wastewater project, the $301 million, which community are going to receive that and how many of the community is going to benefit. And then the broadband, the electricity for homes, housing, especially housing and bathroom addition. They wanted to know how many houses are we talking about in which community? How many bathroom additions are we talking about, and also in which community? So those were the type of questions that were raised, and I don't know if they got a list of those projects where at the community level where these projects were going to go. I have no idea whether they did or not. But anyway, what the Navajo Nation did was, I believe they either amended that legislation or they came up with their own legislation. And the only thing that they pulled out of these projects that were listed was the hardship money. And under that legislation, of course, they decided to allocate $2,000 for anybody that is 18 years of age and older, and $600 for minors, anybody that is below 18 years of age, including newborn, to think. I don't know when they're going to try to address these other areas, like the bathroom addition, housing, electricity, broadband, wastewater, and wastewater project. I really don't know when they're going to start addressing those. But from trying to, it's good that this forum is being held to talk about what should sum up the benefit be. And depending on what the Navajo Nation Council is going to do, I wish that they would produce, if they're going to do what they did with the hardship money, they should do the same with these other areas that the president wanted the Navajo Nation to address, is to come up with a legislation and actually identify where those projects are going to be going. That way, I think everybody would have an opportunity to make a comment as to the type of benefit that might possibly come to their community. What I wanted to mention as a result of the hardship money is that in the suggested Hogan level project that I'm expected to talk about, it lists like water, roads, and other infrastructure and infrastructure improvement. I think the best that we can do is to recommend to everybody that's receiving these funds, whether it be $2,000 or $600, that they should try to use it in such a way to where it would really benefit them. For example, water. Water is the most important thing, whether you live in a large community or a rural community, especially in the rural community. When I say water, I'm talking about things like barrels, water barrel, 55 gallon. And last year and the year before that, there was a lot of distribution of those 6-ounce water bottles. You know, that's good. It's okay. There was also distribution of 5-gallon bottles that were distributed. That's okay also. But what the people have out there, many of them are 55-gallon drum. And some are old, going back maybe 40, 50 years. These are metal 55-gallon drum. And I think the more appropriate one is the plastic, these large plastic water barrel. And it's got to come with proper hose. If you give them plastic, you know, plastic will break during the cold weather, but rubber hose is totally different. And I think that's one thing that we, people that are wanting benefit for these communities, we should be suggesting and recommending these type of a purchase for themselves, since there is no funding that the Navajo Nation is going to handle themselves like they did the last time, where they bought masks and PEP and stuff like that. And we should also be suggesting that they have purchased themselves a decent water basin in which to wash their hand, their face, or even take a bath in it. And also for washing dishes and stuff like that. We should also recommend to them face masks, but not these cheap face masks. There was a lot of that was purchased. And you see a lot of them, you know, just blowing around, you know, as a trash right now. The recommended one is the type that the health department are recommending, N95. That's the one that's being recommended and the most effective. And also, if IHS doesn't have it, or anybody doesn't have it, is these home test kits. I don't know if those are being available for purchase or could be picked up somewhere. like from the IHS or maybe from the Navajo Nation. And CHR and other social workers that go out and visit in home should be trained as to how to apply and actually use the test kit at the whole gun level. And then there should be the recommendations for repairs and renovation of their homes, like windows, doors, putting in proper caulking and insulation around the doors and windows. And then also recommendation for traditional medication for cold, like plants and herbs. And then there should be recommendation for firewood. And also for those that do have electricity to their home, they should use it to pay for the utility bills. And if they have water to their home, to pay for the water bill. And then those that are living in NHA and other rental facilities, they should use it to pay for their rent. And then for our members that are living off the reservation, many of them, I assume, are paying rent. And perhaps many more are paying for their mortgage, their private homes, and their utilities, and taking care of the trash and so forth. But you know, the other issue that comes to our community in the Big Mountain area is just about all of those homes before the federal relocation came along. Those homes that are sitting over there, they are 60 and 70 years old. This was before the home site lease came about. And we're putting a proposal to give those homes a bathroom addition to get water and so forth. The problem that we're going to be running into is many of those homes do not have home site leases. I wish that there would be a simplified certification that would be certified by maybe the grazing committee person in those communities that, yes, this home belongs to this person and they've been living in these homes for X number of years and so forth. So until we know what the Navajo Nation Council is going to do with these other recommended projects, we won't know until then what those projects are going to be. So those are my thoughts and my recommendation coming from the home site, the Hogan level. And with the $2,000, let's say there's a home that has 3 dependents in addition to the mom and dad. And all 3 of the dependents are over 18 years of age and they live in one house. You know, immediately you're looking at $6,000 or $7,000. And the immediate thought would be, and maybe this family doesn't have a decent transportation. They would want to go and combine their resources and run into town to Gallup, Farmington, or Flagstaff and say, we'd like to buy a vehicle. And of course, the dealer would give them a vehicle. But the problem is a month, 2 months, 3 months, maybe 6 months down the road, what are they going to use to pay for the monthly bill, the monthly payment on those vehicles? So that type of an education, I think, really needs to be put out to the people out there. So those are my thoughts, and those are the comments that I wanted to make. So,
Great. Well, thanks so much for dialing in, Percy. We really appreciate you adding your perspective. And we have a bunch of questions in the chat, so maybe we can run through some of those. let's see here, we have one question for you, Christine, is, for folks who are running a business, but it's not yet professionalized. The language used is it's an underground business on the reservation right now. The question was to professionalize, pay taxes and all that. What is that assessment that people make? Like, is it really gonna, what are the benefits that would come with professionalizing and paying taxes and getting a business license? Maybe a little elaboration on that.
Well, I go back to my example. The business owner that runs a business out of her home and has been doing it for 25 years has been able to show that she is running a business out of her home. So she's able to, when she does her taxes, she has all of the expenses related to running the business. And she's able to show that as her income. She's able to get, and if Social Security is still around when she retires, she'll have access to Social Security dollars. She is also able to put money into a 401k plan for herself. So she's investing for her future so that when she does get to, 70, 75 years old, when she wants to retire, she'll be able to retire. What I've seen is people who choose not to file their taxes, who choose not to register their business with the Navajo Nation. When they get to that retirement age, they don't have any documentation to show that they've been working all of these years. So that's one thing is the Social Security payment aspect of it. I know for myself, I'm working and I get statements every now and then from Social Security telling me, okay, well, if you continue working, this is how much you'll receive from Social Security. So that's a benefit. And then also that building wealth for your family. I really believe that if you have an established business, that you can leave that to your children. You can learn, the bookkeeping basics, and you can run your business out of your home, and then you can teach that to your children. So you can leave what you have built for your children. If you're a jeweler, and let's say you're somebody who buys local rugs from the local weavers, and you reinvest that and you sell that to at shows, outside of the reservation, you can build your business, and then you could sell that to your children, and you could sell everything else around the bookkeeping piece, the tax paying piece, and you can pass that along to your children. So I think that there's a lot that can go along with doing that, and professionalizing your business. And if you're a business that's like a contractor business, I mean, if you have everything in place, you can get to the point where you are applying for contracts, and you get those contracts because you have those things in place. So there's a lot of opportunity when you do, legitimize your business on Navajo.
Okay, great. And then there was also another comment about a large building in Sheep Springs, New Mexico, that has been sitting unoccupied for a while, and that being a great opportunity if that were opened up. I think, Christine, you had a comment about that.
Yeah, that's there. And back in 2017, Change Labs had an event in Tuba City. We had kind of like a Shark Tank event, and Delegate Amber Crotty came in. She came in and she was a participant in that, and she actually talked about that building. It's like a vendor village, and it's enclosed space, like you're talking about. Enclosed space, it has utilities, I believe utilities, and it would be a great space for businesses or entrepreneurs to go in and use it and rent it, even if it's on a daily rate, so that they have a place they can set up their business, and they would have the traffic coming in. Because right now, if you drive by Sheep Springs, I mean, you have the vendors right along the roadside, and I mean, it's not that safe. And this vendor village would be a safer place for people to go. So I know that Delegate Crotty was working on getting that reopened. I don't know what is going on with that, but if you're from the Sheep Springs community, yeah, I would encourage you to go to the chapter and find out what is going on with it and see if they can reopen it so that the local entrepreneurs can use that space.
Wonderful. And then we have a question for Lean about getting more businesses on the reservation so people don't have to shop off reservation for their essential items, essentially. And this person was saying, like, for example, buying cars, maybe there's someone who could start an online business. You could purchase online from someone on the reservation so people don't have to shop in one of the border towns. That was more just a comment. I don't know if you want to address that comment.
Well, I want to kind of go along with what Christine just said about the businesses and registering them. And it's really important that your listeners know it, like the burrito lady, the silversmith, the beaters who are beating beautiful jewelry and selling it on the roadside. They should register with the Navajo Nation because these funds, these ARPA funds, and especially with CARES Act too, they allocated funds to the artisans and they were given a grant of $5,000. Unfortunately, a lot of people weren't registered with the Navajo Nation and they lost out on those dollars of $5,000. And that would have gone a long way to reinvest in their, pots, pans, food to keep their business thriving during the pandemic. So I really encourage a lot of your listeners to register your business with the Navajo Nation. It's really important because these artisan programs and they will come back and make sure that they allocate something to you, I hope, because not a whole lot of people came forward and a lot did benefit. They were messaging me, but Christine, I highly encourage people to register their businesses and seek out your company too for advice, because a lot of people aren't aware of it. There's a lady in Kayenta that's been selling since probably I was in middle school, and she still sells to this day. And I always wonder, I'm like, I wonder if she's registered, because during the pandemic, everything ceased, everything. And I wonder how she's faring. And if she was registered, did she get the 5,000? Did that help her, carry any costs like electricity bills, rent? I don't know what was going on, but that's what I wondered about, was her. And that's why I encourage a lot of your people, if you have a business, just register it, because you can get benefits. And like Christine said, Social Security, if it's still available when, you're 70. So it's just really important. I really advocate for that too.
Thank you, Lean. And that's exactly what happened. Last year, we at Change Labs, we helped a lot of small businesses with the CARES Act grant application process. I mean, we were on the phone with people like until the deadline, and we were helping them go through their application. And I found out that some of them did get denied because they didn't have proper financial records to show that they were in business. There was nothing to show that, all the work that they did the previous year, it was just, there was nothing to show. So they lost out on that grant money. So that's another reason. I mean, something could happen again like that. And so it is good to have your documents in order so you can apply for opportunities like that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And also, just lastly, with online businesses, I really fear, people having to be forced out of not running their business online, because I know that during the pandemic there was people doing raffles, online bingos, and the Navajo Nation kind of put a squash on that, saying, hey, you can't do that. And when you have the Navajo Nation executive administration stepping in to stop people from, having to make a dollar, it really causes problems with our people, because they're trying to put food on the table. They're trying to get gas for their vehicles, even having to try to step in to block Navajo and Hopi COVID-19 relief funds from being established. That's a real problem, because our people need for help, and to stop others, these nonprofits, from having to create programs to help our people at the grassroots levels like Mr. Percy. It's really shameful, hurtful, and it's not so I really hope that our nonprofits aren't getting bamboozled or pushed back and trying to not create these programs to bring the much needed supplies to our people who are suffering, who don't have the 10 gallons per day to keep COVID away. That was a statement given by Dr. Fowler, that it takes 10 gallons a day to keep washing your hands, to keep everything clean, food, pots, pans, like whatever. And our people can't afford to waste 10 gallons a day for this. So it's just really kind of a double standard. And I hope that our nonprofits keep pushing forward to help our people, because we see the changes and we see the differences that Ethel's group is doing right now. And I really appreciate that. And I want to say thank you, Ethel, because your people, your group, they are warriors. They are helping our elders. They're helping the young families. They're helping the grandparents who are finding themselves to be parents again because their children lost their battle to COVID-19. I applaud that effort, because we need more nonprofits that don't have restrictions, that can just hit the ground running and feed that family, to clothe that family, to give masks out. I mean, everything, it's so important right now. And we have to help each other. That's the thing to do.
Thank you, Arlene. Yeah, gosh, there's still so much need for just those day-to-day things. Like we have our isolation program going right now. There's, like Percy was saying, the need for the N95s, the more protective PPE, and the rapid tests. We have been getting some of those out to folks that we're responding to with our isolation kits, but there's been a really high demand. We had over 1,200 help requests in the month of January, and we had this program operational since September. From September to December, we only had about 426 help requests. So you can see the impact of the Omicron wave with just that short period of time. And we anticipate there's still going to be a lot of need, at least through the month of February. So I'm hoping that there will be some allocation of ARPA funding to make sure that our people get the N95s and the rapid tests and the things that everybody else is getting access to, but that is very difficult for our people to access here at home. But thank you guys so much for your wonderful insights. And are there any final thoughts you wanna leave folks with as we wrap up here? I think we've hit the hour, so I just want to give you guys an opportunity to leave some parting thoughts. We can start with Christine and then have Lean go and then have Percy close us out. That would be great.
Well, thank you for the opportunity for bringing us together to share our thoughts. And thank you. I echo what Lean says about your program. I mean, you guys have done a lot to help people in the community.
Oh, okay.
So thank you for everything that you've done. Appreciate that. And we'll continue to see you guys do some amazing things. And hopefully we'll be coming over this pandemic soon. But thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you. Those were kind words, Christine. Ethel, I want to say thank you for inviting me, you and your entire group. I want to give a shout out to Glinda Sosi and Mary Francis, because they have been troopers and warriors, and I know that they're helping out your organization, this awesome nonprofit, and the work that they do. Every single volunteer or people on your staff, it just goes a long way. And I want to say to every single person on the Navajo and Hopi COVID-19 Relief Funds program, because our Hopi relatives, I'm sure, are very grateful for the help that you're providing to them too. Wear your masks, everybody. It's very important. this variant is not going away, and we have to be very mindful of where we're at, who we're around, especially if we're around the elders. And I want to say thank you so much to Christine and Percy for, providing insight that, I learn from everybody. I learn every day. And I hope and pray that our Natanis do grant the Navajo and Hopi COVID-19 relief funds that Ethel's running some much needed dollars to keep providing on the ground level for everybody across Denetska within the Four Sacred Mountains and our Hopi relatives. Thank you, Ethel, Hyehe, and Sago, for everything you've done.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for recognizing our frontline warriors, Glenda, our other team leads, and team members who are out there getting those packages to families. Those guys are working crazy hours, really, and doing really tough work. And then, of course, Mary Francis, who keeps everything together and running smoothly. So we are blessed to have such awesome team members. And Percy, did you have some parting thoughts as well before we wrap up here today?
Just a couple of things. Number one is I want to thank the group for inviting me to hear my recommendation, what I saw and what I did not see. One is that for sure, there's going to be two different allocations. One is the $343, I believe, was for the senior members of our nation. And my understanding through the media is that those checks are in the mail, and so they should be getting it later this week or maybe early next week. The other one is the $2,000 and the $600 going to everybody else. I don't know if the organization, non-governmental organizations such as the one that's been headed up by Ms. Branch, whether you're thinking about going to the radio station and talk about recommendation. I mean, that's all we can do is to recommend what these people should be using the money that they're going to get right into their hand. I don't know if that's going to happen, but if it is going to happen, I think the sooner the better, because some of those checks are in the mail, like I said, and then others are going to be, the bigger one will be coming either later this month or early next month. That's one thought that I have. The other one is that I've mentioned that within the legislation that was introduced by either the president or one delegate as to how the $2 billion should be spent, like water and wastewater at $301 million, broadband infrastructure, $208 million, electricity for homes, $200 million, housing, $100 million, bathroom addition, $150 million. I don't know if the council is going to introduce legislation for each and every one of them separately, like the way they did with the hardship money. I have no idea which route they're going to take. But my recommendation to everybody is that we all need to keep an eye on that. And once the legislation is introduced, be prepared to make comment, give your recommendation, and so forth. Those are the two things I wanted to mention. And then beyond that, I think the non-governmental organization, they did an excellent job in spending the donation that they had collected. And they used foot soldiers, volunteer foot soldiers out in the community. They didn't have vehicle furnished to them. They did it all on their own, many times late into the evening and so forth, under severe weather and so forth. But you all need to be commended. And I really do appreciate everything that you have done. And my mother used to say, and she's been gone for a number of years at the age of 96. She used to say that if you help people, help the community, help somebody that needs help, regardless of their age, remember, each and every one of us, there's a spirit, there's a creator that is watching all of us. And if you continue to help these people that are less fortunate, the spirit along the way in your future, they will give back to you for helping their creation, meaning, in our case, the people. So just keep that in mind and, continue to do a good job.
Oh, Percy, thank you so much for sharing those beautiful words from your mother. And I feel like those words definitely, apply to the work that Christine's doing in Change Labs and that Lean does, just as a citizen, making sure that other Navajos are well informed about what's happening in Window Rock. So thank you. And I will pass those words on to our staff as well, who are and volunteers who are helping make sure that our community is getting the things that it needs. So well, everyone have a great day, and thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your thoughts. I really loved hearing all the things you had to say, and I really do think that these were the really key things that could help our community and go a really long way and transforming and strengthening our community. So thank you guys so much for sharing all of that. And hopefully some of our leadership is listening, and we'll see this translate into some policy. That would be wonderful. All right, go on, everyone. Have a great
Bye.
day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.